Hello and welcome back to art class. This week we're going to focus on Pueblos people. This refers to the many nation tribes or native tribes that live in the United States, southwestern United States and Mexico, most often associated with the Four Corners region of the United States, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Nevada, but it also extends down into central Mexico and through that area. You may have heard of these people by other names like the ancestral Puebloians or the Anasazi. Pueblo buildings, which are the buildings that they tended to live in, are usually multi-storied buildings, as you're seeing here in the pictures. They're made from brick, adobe mud, or any other materials from around the area or region. Also, they often are shared walls with other buildings that are right next to them, so kind of like our downtowns. The old downtowns where the buildings are right next door to each other. There's no space between them. The word pueblo actually comes from the Spanish explorers, and it means village. So when they came, it looked like a whole village or city. The ancestral Puebloians had knowledge of science and astronomy and agriculture, so they were a little bit more advanced than some people in other parts of the world at that time. But the big question is, where are they now? No one knows for sure, but one theory is due to the long drought that they have evidence of the peoples that were living there had to disperse and go into different areas and find new places to live, and they were absorbed into other cultures or reformed to create newer cultures like the Hopi Native Americans. I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of the Pueblo buildings and the ancestral Puebloians. There is much more to this group of people, and if you're really interested, I encourage you to get on like Wikipedia to get some information there, or just do some research on your own. And on to the project.
And what we're going to do today is not overly complicated, but we are going to break it into 2 weeks because we've already done a part where you got background information on some of the Pueblos people. So today you're going to need 2 pieces of white paper. You're going to want a pair of scissors. You're going to want a pencil, and you're going to want either crayons or colored pencils. I've tested this project either way, and actually it looks good either way. I'm just going to use colored pencils because I had them more handy at this moment. All right, so first piece of paper is actually just going to stay blank for right now. We're going to take the second piece of paper. So I'm just going to move one over here. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of paper and you're going to fold it over. Don't crease it yet. And you want to get it about as even as you can here. So it looks like this side is equal with this side. Then once you're pretty equal, then you can flatten it. It won't have to be perfect, but it should be somewhat close. So this is how I test to see if it's perfect. You're going to take it over. I'm going to fold this over right on the edge of that piece of paper. And I was a little off. You can see that, but that's okay. For this project, it doesn't need to be perfect, but it shouldn't be pretty close. If it's more than a finger space away, you might want to try to refold it a little bit to make it a little bit closer. But if it's within a finger space or a thumb space, I think you're probably pretty good. Then what you're going to do is you're going to open it back up, and you're going to cut on the folds because we need 3 relatively equal sized pieces of paper. Okay, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating our own version of a Pueblo. And normally, if we were in class, I would do this with chalk pastels. So if you have chalk pastels, you can actually do that. But most of us don't, and that's why I chose colored pencils or crayons, because they do a fairly good job of kind of getting the same look. Okay. We're going to need to create 3 stencils, okay, and they're not going to be the same. And what we're going to be doing is creating a building outline, the rooftop of all the buildings. And so what I'm going to do is like this. I'm going to draw a line. I make it actually a nice straight line. And each building has to be at least 2 to 3 finger spaces wide. Any skinnier than that, and it won't really look very good. So we're just doing the building tops. kind of like a skyline that you might see of a city. Right there. Now you may end up with a little bit of space on the side just because of leftovers, because mine are all about 2.5 to 3 finger spaces wide. So this is mine. And you could make all 3 at the same time. They need to be different, but I prefer to do one at a time. So I'm going to go and do this. Next thing I'm going to do is cut it, because we're actually creating a stencil. You can put your scraps off to the side because we won't need them. We want the big bottom piece there. Okay. Please note that none of my buildings actually reach the bottom, because obviously that would cut this thing apart. So it's one big piece from side to side. Okay. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this a little bit above the bottom of the paper. So I recommend about maybe 2 to 3 finger spaces above the bottom of the paper. We don't want it way up here. That's not going to be helpful. It's got to be about 2 finger spaces, 2 to 3 finger spaces. And it should fit going across your paper like that. And I know right now it is kind of hard to see the edge because it's white on white. So I'm going to take care of that. This is where, let's see, I'm going to find a color. I'll use violet. You're pretty much open to every color except black. We're going to save black for something later. So you're brown, gray, white. White's probably not a great color because it is white paper. Reds, blues, whatever. And the way this is going to work, you're going to want your pencil to be sharpened, and you're going to want to hold the pencil so you're using more of the side of it instead of the tip. And so it's going to go like this, and I'm going to just make marks. You can't color back and forth because it'll rip the stencil, so you can only go one way. You start on the stencil and you go off it. So it's kind of like what we did with the grass on our very first project, except you can choose whatever color you want. You're going to work your way around. So we're doing one color, working our way around. Now you can see a nice edge line that this creates. Okay. We need to do that 2 more times. So I'm going to create myself a new skyline. Again, don't touch the very bottom of your building. Well, there's my new one. Again, there are 2 to 3 finger spaces wide. Okay, now I'm going to place it on here. I'm going to allow it to actually overlap a little bit right here. And let me show you how I do that with my color. I am going to choose a new color, so I think I'm going to take this red-orange color. And what's nice is with the stencil, you could flip it either direction, whatever works best for you. Okay, but the majority of the line should be above the one that was before, so don't do it down here. That's not a good idea. So I'm going to have mine right like that. Notice right here where the overlap is, I didn't do down here. I just stopped when I got to that area. So now it looks like everything's going behind this first set. Then I need to make a third one. Okay, so again, this one's gonna be put above. So I'm gonna have it right here. There's gonna be a little bit of overlap there, so I'll make sure to skip over that area. There are my 3 layers. If you happen to have a chance and you have the room, you may do a 4th layer, but don't overcrowd it. Our goal right now is to get these 3 layers done. Next week we'll do the finer details on everything else. If you do happen to get little marks like I did that happen to slip underneath with colored pencil, if you're lucky you can erase it and lighten it up. If you're using crayon, I don't think an eraser will really do much, but you can give it a shot and try to pop it up. But it will look good with either crayon or colored pencil. If you happen to have chalk pastels, not oil pastels, but chalk pastels, you could do that too. It's gonna have a slightly softer look as you're doing it with the colors, because you'd use your finger to smear the color off. But I would, if you don't have that, don't worry about it. Just go straight with the colored pencils. That way yours looks like mine. And I will see you next week to wrap this up.